Populism has had a significant and complex influence on the UK in the last decade, playing a major role in shaping the political landscape and contributing to several key events. Populist rhetoric, particularly from UKIP and later the Brexit Party, fueled Euroscepticism and anti-immigration sentiment, and this played a crucial role in the 2016 Brexit referendum, where a narrow majority voted to leave the European Union. Populist arguments claiming the EU infringed on national sovereignty and was responsible for economic woes resonated with a significant portion of the electorate. And populist politicians like Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson employed simplified narratives and divisive language, appealing to emotions and anxieties rather than detailed policy discussions. And this contributed to a more polarized political environment with increased focus on cultural issues and national identity. Populist leaders often portray themselves as outsiders fighting against a corrupt and out-of-touch establishment. And this rhetoric has contributed to a decline in trust in traditional institutions like political parties, the media, and even parliament. Populist movements often emphasize national identity and cultural values, potentially leading to increased emphasis on immigration control and stricter social policies. And this can exacerbate existing social divisions and contribute to feelings of alienation among certain groups. The long-term consequences of populism in the UK are still unfolding, and while Brexit is a clear example of its influence, it remains to be seen how it will shape future policies and social dynamics. Several claims, for example, made by the Leave campaign during the 2016 Brexit referendum have been widely disputed and deemed inaccurate or misleading. And of course, today I have some of the most prominent examples again in a topic like this. We have the 350 million a week for the NHS. And this claim, emblazoned on the infamous red bus used by the Vote Leave campaign, stated that the UK sent £350 million a week to the EU and could redirect this money to fund the National Health Service, the NHS, after leaving. The figure was demonstrably false, as it did not account for the UK's rebate from the EU budget nor the costs of EU membership benefits. And the UK Statistics Authority deemed the claim misleading and a clear misuse of statistics. And then we have the easiest trade deals in history. Proponents of Leave frequently asserted that negotiating a new trade deal with the EU would be straightforward and swift. However, this claim has proven unrealistic. The negotiations were complex and time-consuming, ultimately resulting in a deal that many argue is less favorable to the UK than its previous EU membership. Of course, they are a third country now. But of course, we also have take back control. And this slogan resonated with many voters who felt the EU imposed excessive regulations and undermined national sovereignty. However, critics argue that leaving the EU has not significantly reduced bureaucracy and has, in some cases, created new complexities for businesses, but also individuals. And we had the claim with the reduced immigration. A significant portion of the Leave campaign focused on controlling immigration, promising to significantly reduce the number of migrants entering the UK after Brexit. While net migration has fallen since the referendum from the EU, we know that net migration overall is going upwards very much. It's of course important to note that this is just some of the most important and prominent contested claims made by the Leave campaign. They lied a lot. But evaluating the truthfulness of such claims is, well, it has happened, and everybody knows they were just lies. And if people are still sticking to it, that just shows the, amount of their intelligence. But there are some additional points to consider here. The Electoral Commission, that's the UK's independent elections watchdog, found that there was clear evidence of a failure to comply with electoral law by the Vote Leave campaign. And several Leave campaign figures, including Boris Johnson, have since acknowledged that Some of the claims made during the campaign were overstated or inaccurate. But indeed, populism, a term often tossed around in political discourse, carries a significant weight in today's complex and polarized world. It evokes strong emotions ranging from fervent support to vehement disapproval. However, understanding populism requires delving beyond its surface-level connotations and recognizing its multifaceted nature. And I want to try to explore the concept of populism, examining the core characteristics, the potential causes, and the diverse impacts it has on societies worldwide as well in this video. At its core, populism is a political ideology that pits the common people against an elite establishment perceived as corrupt, out of touch, and unresponsive to the needs of the majority. Populists often frame themselves as champions of the ordinary people, promising to restore their voice and agency in a system they view as rigged against them. This us versus them narrative is a central figure of populist rhetoric, fostering a sense of collective identity and grievance among the supporters. And you know Jacob Rees-Mogg and his reaction recently. Several factors can contribute to the rise of populism. Economic anxieties fueled by factors like globalization, technological advancements, and stagnant wages can create feelings of disenfranchisement and insecurity among certain segments of the population. And this economic discontent can be further amplified by social and cultural anxieties, such as concerns about immigration, national identity, and rapid societal change. And these anxieties can provide fertile ground for populist leaders who exploit them to gain support by offering simplistic solutions and scapegoating convenient targets. Populist movements manifest in diverse forms across the political spectrum, making it challenging to categorize them neatly. Left-wing populism often emphasizes economic inequality and critiques powerful corporations and financial institutions, advocating for policies like progressive taxation and social safety nets. And right-wing populism, on the other hand, frequently focuses on issues of national identity, immigration, and cultural preservation, often employing nationalist and protectionist rhetoric. The impact of populism on societies are complex and multifaceted. On the positive side, populist movements can bring attention to the concerns of marginalized groups and inject a dose of much-needed anti-establishment sentiment into stagnant political systems. And they can also encourage greater citizen participation and engagement in the political process while defending against them. But the potential downsides of populism are significant. Populist leaders often employ divisive rhetoric that can exacerbate social and political polarization, leading to increased hostility and even violence. And their tendency to demonize outgroups and simplify complex issues can hinder constructive dialogue and compromise, making it difficult to address pressing societal challenges effectively. And additionally, populist policies often prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability, potentially jeopardizing economic stability and international cooperation. Brexit is just one example. And in conclusion, populism is a complex phenomenon with deep roots in economic anxiety, social concerns, and a yearning for change. And while it can offer a voice to the disenfranchised and challenge the status quo, its potential for divisiveness and simplistic solutions necessitates careful consideration. Understanding the various facets of populism and its diverse manifestations is crucial for navigating the complex political landscape of the 21st century and fostering more inclusive and effective governance. The political landscape of the 21st century is undeniably marked by the rise of populism, a phenomenon transcending regional boundaries and impacting societies across the globe. And that's why I wanted to talk about the characteristics, the trends globally, and acknowledging the potential downsides associated with populist movements. The pervasiveness of populism becomes evident when examining the political landscape of various regions. Europe has witnessed the emergence of figures like Marine Le Pen in France, Matteo Salvini in Italy, and Viktor Orban in Hungary, who espouse right-wing populism centered on national identity and immigration. And similarly, the Americas have seen the rise of Donald Trump in the United States and Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, capitalizing on economic anxieties and cultural concerns through their populist rhetoric. And even in Asia, leaders like Narendra Modi in India and Rodrigo Duterte in the Philippines exhibit populist tendencies, albeit with distinct ideological nuances. And despite regional variations, these movements share certain core characteristics that contribute to their appeal. As I said, they often employ an us versus them narrative, positioning them as the voice of the common people, and that is something they all have in common. May it be in Europe, Asia, America, it's always the same. They always want to play the guy of the little people. And that is why they are so dangerous. People fall for it. And I always complain when people bring up this in places where it doesn't belong. But in this case, unfortunately, it does belong. We have seen the same approach in Germany in the 1920s and 1930s. And that brought people like that into power. And we saw what can happen when people like that, with that populist approach, come to power. This works, and unfortunately it works again today. And that people are still falling for this today is kind of scary. The problem is that people are having the access to information wherever they are. That is not the problem. The problem is that they are not using it to get facts. And as long as this is the use of, for example, social media today, the populists have such a better place to work than they ever had in history. But we will see how far they can get. I mean, we will see the next election in Britain will probably not see a populist at the helm, but we will know only at election day. But it might be that Donald Trump will be back at the helm in the USA this year, or next year, but the elections are this year. And Viktor Orban still is in power. And we will see what happens with Marine Le Pen in France. Although the European ones at least rode back a lot, seeing how Orban reacted now in the European Council, and Marine Le Pen not wanting Frexit anymore after seeing what Brexit does. So the landscape is complicated. But now the German populists from the AfD want Dexit, which is complete economic suicide for our country. But yeah, that's what the short-term gains over sustainability are, what I mentioned earlier in the video. Nevertheless, if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.